The Badgers come back down to earth after getting absolutely destroyed by top-ranked Arizona. We get into that along with some transfer portal talk, and the volleyball team is headed to the Final Four. You're live with the Bucky Report.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome into the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajeev and Justin, in for our weekend full episode to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. We are at the Bucky Report on Twitter or X, at the Bucky Report on YouTube, and wherever you can find your podcast. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button so you know when we're doing fresh new content. Well, if you didn't catch it this weekend, Wisconsin got absolutely pummeled by the Arizona Wildcats, the number one team in America. We talked about this last week, Justin. You predicted a win. I predicted a loss. It was a loss, and it was a big one. Mm-hmm. This team simply outplayed us. They outclassed us. They are better. They are more talented. We had a lot of Arizona fans check out our show on Wednesday. Thank you guys for listening. And yes, you're right. Yes, we will say what we need to say. Arizona's great. They absolutely beat Wisconsin. There is no doubting that. So all you Arizona fans out there, including one of my best friends who I was with during that game this weekend. Yeah, that wasn't fun. But, you know, Justin, that kind of stuff happens. They're a better team. At the end of the day, we still went 2-1 in that really tough, crucial stretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that was the goal all along. And I'll eat my crow on this. I admitted that I was wrong right from the get-go. Wisconsin had all the things that they had been doing right for the last month. They basically let unravel in that game. And basically my kind of template for them to win that game was you need to control the pace, you need to win the rebounding battle, and you need to be efficient on offense. And they did none of those things. They after the 10-minute mark in the first half, they just unraveled. And when the crowd got into it for Arizona, they just fell apart. Like Arizona had fed off of it, and we just wilted when that happened. We looked like this is the first time this season I thought we looked like the team from last year at times. So it just seemed like mentally we kind of gave up in this one, especially in the second half. The second half was brutal.
It was tough to watch in the second half. As it just like all over the place mentally gave up. That's a really good way to put it. Okay, as we start off every one of our shows, we will kick it off with 3 takes from the week in anything with Wisconsin Badger or anything really related. I'll kick this one off. Number 1, we went 2-1 in the crucial stretch. We are still a very good team with a ton of potential this year. To me, that's really clear. Even in the way we played this game, look, we got beat start to finish, but there were some things still that like this team shot out of the world. They 46% from 3, 50-some% from the field. Right. Arizona did. They crushed us, but we're still a really good team that can do that. Number 2 is the transfer portal is getting very exciting, and there is a particular quarterback that I really want, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. And number 3 for me, on Wisconsin volleyball, these guys deserve so much credit. Once again, the Badgers back to the Final Four. And my take is we're going to win the national championship the way these girls are playing. Justin, what are your 3 takes?
Yeah, my take is it's never, as Ryan has stated many a time, it's never as bad as you look in your worst, and it's never as good as you're never as good as you are at your best. Wisconsin underperformed in this game, and there's still some great things to take away from the early games that we've played so far this season. I think we're closer to the team that we've been in the preceding 4 or 5 games that we've had than we were in this one. But they've got to get back to the grind. They've got to lock in mentally again, and they've got to start get back to doing the things that they were doing well during that stretch. Defense really fell apart in this game. They have got to play at the level of intensity and effort that they were giving earlier, and they have got to find a way to lock in on offense a little bit more. And just handle pressure, because there's going to be a team that is going to affect them potentially if we think they're a tournament team. I think you'd agree with that.
Oh yeah,
that so much of March is matchups. They need to be able to handle a team that's going to come after them with pressure. We've seen 2 games where that's happened, and they've struggled with both of them. Excuse me. And second, the portal. I think there's some really intriguing pieces that this team is going to get a chance to get a hold of. And I think we do have a chance to listen. I've always said all along, Wisconsin needs to find depth in the portal and not stars, because it's so much luck in finding guys that end up being stars when you bring them in from the portal. They need to find guys that can help make the team just better in general. And hopefully the aggregate of everyone ends up making the team better overall. And then finally, watching the women's volleyball, they're an incredible team. Like their block is borderline as good as it was with Retke in them when they won it a few years back. I would say I was really impressed with Oregon in that match. Like the athleticism, was it Pukas? The girl who was their setter was really impressive in some of the things that she did, and she kept them in that match and won them the third set. And Wisconsin still was, fighting tooth and nail on that. And so for them to even pull a set, Oregon really had to work for it. I honestly do think they're going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice, wouldn't it? 2 titles in 3 years. All right, let's get some comments in here. Let me actually take this banner down. Sorry. Zach Bartz, where did his comment go? I just had it. Says, given this 3-game gauntlet, I'll take 2-1 versus 2 top 3 teams in a wire-to-wire win against MSU at the Breslin Center. That being said, the Zona game was a bad performance. Zona felt like a true number 1. Superfly 247, clearly an Arizona fan. Thank you for listening. I listened to you guys pregame, and I was expecting Wisconsin to be unreal offensively and defensively. You guys did look good at first. That run ended it.
They wilted, and that's something that they need to grow from as the season goes on.
Yeah. Mobile Tech Sports says, quick question: who wins this Saturday, Arizona or Purdue? If you're a fan of college basketball, I think these are the 2 best teams in the country right now. Arizona and Purdue. They play next Saturday on the 16th. That I'm definitely going to watch that game. That's going to be really, really exciting. But look, so let's get into this Arizona game a little bit more. We started off okay. It was close, and then Arizona did what Arizona does. They went on a run. They absolutely dominated. And I'll tell you what, Arizona defensively played really well. We got a lot of comments after our show last week about how great they are defensively, and they are. You're absolutely right. That team is really, really good. They shut us down at all points of the floor. We actually shot the ball pretty well. We shot 47% from 3. That's actually you would think if the Badgers shoot 47% from 3, you're going to win the game. And 41% from the field. But they shot better, and they defended so well. They got the rebounds. We didn't really get a lot of offensive rebounds. Justin, did you ever feel like we were in it, or we were talking a little bit during the game? You actually kind of thought maybe we could come back after halftime. You laid out a path.
I laid out a path where what they would have had to have done, which was you had to, by the time they got to 12, like we were down 17 at the half, I believe. I said by 12 minutes we have to be under 10. Like if we want to find a way, like you have to turn this game into a grinder and start putting pressure on Arizona to close it out. And they instead came out of the break and just basically just fell flat on their face. So having watched them, like the big takeaway that I had offensively, there were some things that I thought were there that they didn't attack. I felt like when Chucky would come off the screen at the top of the key, he had an opportunity to attack into the paint. And it felt like every time he had that first step, because they were trailing on the screens, I'm like, he's got to go downhill. And every single time without fail, he just stopped. And I'm like, you can't do that. You've got to put pressure on them, because that's how you're going to get easy passes to Crowell and stuff like that when people have to help over on you. Now, Chucky was clearly bothered by the athleticism. This is the first time this season I've seen him look like he was out of sorts with athletic guards on him and size. And it was surprising to me how I saw him kind of clam up a little bit. Like I was expecting him to play through it a little bit more. And at least like he didn't really have anything bad that happened to him that would have caused that. But it seemed like the way he started playing was like he got blocked at the rim twice. And it's like that never happened. Like you got to put that pressure there at least until it's not working. And I felt like there was opportunity there that he just never exploited. And if he's not doing anything, like Chucky, we talked about how good he's been all season long with running the offense and keeping things efficient and getting things clicking. And he just struggled in this game to be able to get things moving.
Yeah, it was just, honestly, the game was really tough to watch. I feel like and I think a comment said earlier, look, they looked like the number 1 team. Yeah, they did. They really, really did. This team is absolutely going to be here in March. I mean, I expect Arizona to be a Final Four team. They looked really good, and they've got talent all across the floor. I mean, their starting five. We said on our Wednesday show, they average in double figures. Every single one of their starting five. Their center is a monster inside Umar Ballo. I mean, he destroyed us, and we were trying to front him in the paint. That didn't work. Nothing we really did against them worked. And then if you give any of their guys even a sliver of space at the 3-point line, they're firing it and they're making it. I mean, they shot out of this world, and that's what the number one team in the country does. They shot 46% from three, 58% from the field, just because of how many shots they had down low. This team is just really good. They play great defense. They rebound the ball well. So the question is now, where do we go from here, right? So, I mean, I'm still very confident in what I'm seeing out of Wisconsin. I think that we've had a really, really good stretch of games. Yeah, we got beat by the number one team, and that's okay. That's going to happen. We are going to lose to great teams. We are not a top 5 team. We're not a top 10 team. So we're going to lose to those teams, and that's fine. That's okay. All we're going to do is try to compete and do what we can. But I still think the guys gave it a good effort. I think the effort in the second half definitely tailed off. I mean, you could just see they stopped. They stopped believing they were going to win. And sadly, that's going to happen in big games. But now you got to pick yourself up. You got 2 fairly easy non-conference opponents before you kick off or tip off the Big Ten season. So there's still a ton to play for here, and I think you've still set yourself up really nicely going into the Big Ten season, don't you think? I mean, even though this is a loss, hey, we still went 2-1 in this really tough stretch.
Well, first off, I'm going to address Bo's thing here. Bo Dragon, Chucky will get his shot sent into orbit. Listen, it's not about Chucky finishing at the rim if he attacks down the paint. The goal is to get people to collapse on him, and that opens up other people. Because somebody's going to have to pick him up because the guy who's guarding him is caught up on the screener. He's got to step on him. Somebody's got to cut him off. And that's putting pressure on everyone else to adjust and forcing defensive rotations. Your goal is to get somebody out of position and get an easy shot. And because we weren't doing that, it basically just let the guy who was getting screened guard him yet, because Chucky would stop the second he came over and the big man would kind of be there, but not necessarily in front of him. The other issue was Krull in this game flat out just did not finish. There were several times where he had a chance to go up for a layup and he just butchered the layup. And it's like, you have position, you have to at least draw the foul. Like, you've got to be at the line. But to your question, this team has, listen, this is probably going to be the worst game that Wisconsin plays all year. And I would say that even if they had a rematch with Arizona tomorrow, I would say the game would probably be a lot closer, and hopefully we would finish a lot better than what we did, or they're mentally broken and they would just completely fall apart. But this team did not play to the level that we had seen them play before this, and the level that they play before this is actually probably a top 15-ish type team. They're not going to necessarily play with the top teams, but everybody else they're going to play with. Like Marquette, Marquette's just blew Texas off the court. That's a Marquette team that we beat by 11 points. So they can hang with just about everybody in the country in terms of this. They need to be able to stay strong mentally, continue to grind away, and continue to develop as a team, and they'll be fine. The Big Ten is down this year. I'll tell you that right now. There's, as much as people will tout Purdue, I would actually take Arizona in that game, and I don't necessarily think it's close. A lot of it will depend on how they officiate.
Purdue's really good, man. I mean,
but Ballo can actually play with Edey, and if depending on how they officiate that game, like Edey may have the edge at center, and every other position Arizona's got the edge. And that's the way I look at it, is they have more room for error. Now, Edey is a problem because if he gets hot in that game, he could easily go for 35 points and 10 boards and get Ballo into foul trouble, within 5 minutes of the game. And that changes everything in that, because the backup center really doesn't have the weight to play with Edey.
Yeah. Christian Gross says, Crowell is the oddest Badger I've ever seen. I've never seen a player who's lose confidence in shooting after they have an amazing shooting performance like he did against MSU. So I, like I said, I didn't talk a lot during the game to you guys because I was watching it on my phone a little bit, and I was at this birthday party in Tucson actually. But that being said, one of the things that really annoyed me about this game, and Christian Gross I think said it right, is Stephen Crowell once again didn't take shots from the top of the key when he had the ball. what are you doing, man? Like when he finally took those shots against Michigan State and he drained them. Why? He was open. I saw at least 3 different times he was open, and I'm thinking, just shoot the ball. Like, why are you not shooting? Because when you do,
the perimeter like that would have made a huge difference in terms of how we could have attacked them if he would.
Absolutely. And again, it improves spacing so much better when they have to defend the 3-point line, especially with Crowell up there. It frees up the lane. But when Crowell's open and he doesn't shoot, that simply means the defense is going to stay off him the entire game. They're going to clog up the lane. They're going to make it more difficult for our athletic guards, our athletic wings to drive in. He needs to do that. He needs to shoot that ball. And he's a good shooter. I mean, you saw Nolan Winter shoot from there when he wasn't even that far open. And like, just take the shot. It really annoys me when he doesn't take it. And the one game we saw him actually take it, we beat the doors off the Breslin Center and we crushed Michigan State. That's the Steven Crowell that we need to see. And you're right about him not finishing. He's going to have games like that where he doesn't finish very well, but I just can't handle when he doesn't shoot.
He's got to get the fouls though. That's the thing. Like if you're not going to finish at the rim, you've got to at least be physical and force the defender to foul you in order. If you're not going to finish it, at least make them earn it. So the other part of this is it's becoming more and more apparent that Blackwell needs to be starting. Like he dropped 17 in this. Some of that was in garbage time, but he is clearly probably at worst our second best player on the team. And
I mean, at this point, yeah.
I mean, he does so many things well. He's the only guy that actually played well offensively overall. Like he's 50% from the field.
Yeah, he led the team in points. So that was actually my next question was talking about John Blackwell and his growing role in this team. Obviously, John Blackwell is clearly extremely athletic. He's not afraid to shoot. He's got a very good head on his shoulders, very good mentally. So you're thinking it's time for him to start now. That's you're saying that he needs to start. I actually don't think it's time for him to start. I think I'm okay with him coming off the bench now. If you remember last year, I was one of the guys who was screaming for Connor Segian to start because I wanted him to start. I wanted the guy that could produce instantly off the bench, or to not come off the bench and to start. With Blackwell, I think that he is so impactful as a sub that I want him to get tons of minutes, but I'm okay with Klesmit starting because he brings so much defensively early on in the game. I think that's important to start like that. And Klesmit is a guy that, as you've seen in the last couple of games, he can have one streaky great shooting game and then one where he's not like that. So he's a bit of a streaky guy offensively. I kind of want to see what he has early on in the game. He's not afraid to take shots. And I like that about Max. So I'm okay with Blackwell coming off the bench right now. I don't feel like he needs to start, but as the season goes on, he does need to get his minutes. And you've said this, I've said this, Ryan has said this, give the man a lot of minutes because he is playing, like you said, probably better than anyone else on the team right now. He's very dependable. He's very smart with the ball. He doesn't he doesn't turn over the ball a lot. He makes the right decision at the right time. So, but that being said, I'm okay with him not starting. It sounds like you want him to start now.
He needs to get starter minutes. My view on this is I'm kind of torn in terms of how I view it. I don't like Klesmit as much off the bench as I like Blackwell off the bench because I think that Blackwell's a far more consistent scorer. And I feel like it's easier for him to create offense than it is Klesmit. That said, I think he needs to be playing starter minutes because I just think he's more productive. He's got to be getting close to 30 minutes. He should be getting 30 minutes a game. And I say that because there's so many little things that he does well on the court. Like when he gets under the post, he's smart enough to know when somebody's got a body on your back to jump into that person because not only are you probably getting the foul, but you're also creating space for you to get the shot up because they're not jumping straight up to block you. You're jumping into them and it causes them to kind of jump backwards while you're doing it. And not everyone does that. Not everyone's smart enough, but he really gets up for a guy who's 6'4", 6'5". Like he climbs when he's underneath there. And the only time I've really seen him struggle with it was I think Balo or somebody came down and sunk down on him and he got swatted a couple times, but I think he still ended up drawing the foul on it. He got blocked the first time.
He's very good at drawing fouls. He really is.
So Blackwell, I think you need to find a way to get more out of him because I just think it's there. Like he's a guy who can go out there and get you 12, 13 points a game because he creates it with ease. Like, he's a guy that does not have to have high usage to get that. He just will take it when it's there. And if it's not, then he'll continue to move the ball. Like, that's one of the unsold things about him, is that he's very unselfish with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not going to take it if it's not there. And I mean, he hit the threes, but they were open looks. Like, he wasn't forcing shots to just get a shot up. He was taking what was there within the offense. A couple of times he did a really heady job of getting into good spots where the defense, the 1-3 he hit, nobody followed him. He went down, sunk down to the corner. Nobody went down there with him, got a wide open look. So he does some really heady, smart things that you don't expect a freshman to do.
Yeah, very, very heady. Tyler Strieber says, Klesman already transferred. Put him on the bench. He ain't transferring again. Joey Gibson says, bear down. Yes, welcome, Joey. I heard that a lot when I was in Arizona this weekend. So, yes, that was like just constantly said in my ear, bear down after the game. Let's talk about AJ Storr, Justin. 4 of 13 from the field. So he and Blackwell took a combined 25 shots, and Storr took the most shots again this week. Is he shooting too much? Are you where are you on AJ Storr? Like, look, he obviously brings a ton of athleticism to this team, and I'm all for it, and I love what he's doing. But is he shooting too much? How do you feel about his decision making, and how do you feel about him taking 13 shots a game like he took in the Arizona game?
I think he started off really well in this game. Actually, he was pretty efficient, and then when things fell apart, his game just went downhill. Like, he started taking a few shots that weren't great shots. He had a bad fadeaway post shot that he had that I was like, it's not the shot we need to be taking when we're struggling to get good possessions. That's still something he's fighting with. I don't necessarily view it as a negative, but like, we've seen what really good him is, and it was not in this game. Like, he made some decisions that you're like, just stay within the flow of this. You're capable of finding easy shots with your athleticism. Don't force it just to get a shot up. Get a good shot, move the ball. They'll get it back to you. You're the most athletic guy we have on the floor. Just make the smart decision. And he didn't always do that. And that's something that in a game like this going forward, like if we have a Purdue game or something like that, we can't have him jacking up bad shots, because that can shoot you right out of the game. And he's got to learn, I need to do what's best here. And what's best here may be me just putting pressure and creating a good pass by being able to do some things rather than trying to force a shot up that's an ill-advised shot. I mean, so much for him. I know he's got NBA aspirations. He's got to find a way to clean that up, because nobody wants a guy who's shooting low 40s. Like, he's not getting drafted if he can't find a way to be efficient, especially with his athletic makeup. Like, they're going to be, why are you a 6'7" dude in college basketball and you're finishing low 40s? Like, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah. Dark Ray says Storr was forcing it too much. I can't blame him when we're down by so much. I'm going to get back to that in a minute here. MBKN says, yeah, holding Arizona 67 was a wild take. I think he's talking about you, Justin. Yeah. But respect to Wisconsin, he says, Bo Dragon, good friend of the show, always a good listener here. Bo Dragon says Storr is just putting his NBA resume out there. He's not a system player. I want to get back to what Dark Ray said about forcing it too much. So I agree with you, Justin. I think that forcing it is really the answer, is really what we're seeing with him. I want him to just be, I feel like he's quickly become one of the best players on the team. He's a very important piece of what we do, and he has great games. But his decision making isn't, in my opinion, Blackwell is a better decision maker than Storr is with the ball.
Oh yeah, well I'll agree to that.
You can see Storr. You can see Storr just like get to the point where he's like, I've got to find offense. I've got to manufacture offense. I'm going to take a bunch of shots and fire stuff up there. But what I'd rather see him do is drive a little bit more and force the refs to make a call. And if you're going to miss a shot, I'd rather you miss one of those. I'd rather you get a block or something like that, because I just want to see him make slightly better decisions. He's going to be critical for us. Excuse me. But when he gets too forceful with the ball and he tries to take over himself, and you're down by 10 and you're down by 15 in the first half, you have to keep with the program. You got to take your time. You've got to get good shots. You've got to get fouled. You've got to find open shooters. But he was forcing it way too much. And all that does is it puts us in a situation where instead of being down by 10, we're down by 20, right? They outscored us by 17 in the first half and then again by 8 in the second half. Like, we were never in that game. But I want to see a more calm and collected AJ Storr. And that means better shot selection. And that really means making the right decision with the ball. Because if he's the best player on the team, he's got to know what the team needs when he needs it. And Chucky does that. Chucky, I feel like, has that. He understands game situations and when to force things and when not to. But AJ Storr is so good, and if he can just keep it under control a little bit more and take the right shot, he will be that much better. I'm a big fan of what he's doing, and obviously he raises hugely the athleticism ceiling on this team, as does Blackwell. But he's got to make the right decision at the right time. That will come back to haunt us. Like you said, we play a team like Purdue. If he does that again, we're going to get beat by a lot. He needs to keep under control.
Yeah, it will be interesting with him because with his athletic gifts, there's no reason why he shouldn't be close to a 50% shooter. Like, you have the ability to exploit whoever's guarding you in virtually every game. Like, there's not many 6'7" wings in college basketball. And if they are, they're typically NBA guys. Like, there's not a lot of guys out there that are super athletic 6'7" guys playing the wing that, unless they're just have no semblance of a jump shot at all, and all they are is an athlete. But those guys, how many teams do we see that have a 6'7" wing? There's not many.
Yeah.
Like maybe on a team like Purdue or Michigan or, Michigan State, but those are pretty much the only three teams. He needs to start taking advantage of what he's good at and understanding. Like, some of those times when he pins down on the block, he's got to seal that guy and stay underneath like a center would. Seal down there at like 2 feet from the rim and just hold that guy there. And if you're going to back, like, basically you're just going to do the same thing that Wall does. Just go up over your shoulder and flip it in. Like, you are more explosive than Wall is, so you can borderline just go up and dunk it. But, if you're facing any team that's not Arizona, you're probably going to have a guy who's 6'4" that's guarding you, and you're much longer limbs. You're going to be able to explode up over that guy. You got to create easy shots for yourself. I don't want to see you 10 feet from the rim with your back to the basket, jumping and fading away. Yeah. And some of that's like learn a drop step or whatever. You've got to find ways to get closer to the rim because when you fade away, you're less likely to get fouled.
Yeah. Tyler Schreiber says, why did Gard have CE3 and Gilmore on the court at the same time? You're basically playing 4v5 on both ends, defensively with CE3 being a liability and offensively with Gilmore being a liability. It's a very fair point. So let's talk about Connor a little bit. Look, he had 8 minutes, so he doubled his minute production. Do you think, Justin, that Connor's going to get right this season and he's going to play a significant role on this basketball team?
I think that he can be capable of having a solid role on this team against most of the teams that we play. Against teams like this, if he's not going to be shooting hot, he's not going to be able to be on the floor. You just can't. Defensively, good coaches are going to seek him out and they're going to annihilate him. And Ryan and I were talking about this. I like Carter Gilmore. Like, he's a nice guy, but as a player, he offers nothing on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, we make him out to be more than what he is. Like, he's a solid defender, which is why he can give you 5 minutes out there where he's not going to be a matador, but he's not a guy that you can go out there and be like, this guy's a defensive stopper. Like, he's simply solid. He can be out on the floor and not get exploited. So the two of those guys out there, you really are limiting what you have. You can't afford to have them out there. And honestly, they really need to start leading on Winter to have him develop. Like, he should be starting to get 15 minutes, 20 minutes a game because he needs to take his lumps. It is what it is at this point. But if you let him out there and have him hopefully gain some confidence, by the end of the season, he could be a really good, valuable player. Like, if he can suddenly start giving you 8 points in a game where you need it, that'd be amazing. Right now, he's scared to death to go out there and do anything. Like, he shot a couple threes. There are a couple times I saw him do a beautiful up fake where the guy clearly stepped in too tight and he could have gone right past him. And it's like, he's afraid to take that. Like, that is something that next year he'll probably be much better at, but he's got to learn. Like, when that guy goes up, you have to go right past him. You're athletic enough to take majority of the big men in the country off the bounce because that's his best skill is his ability to attack people off the dribble. Like, he's a very athletic guy at that size. He's not a back to the basket 6'10", 6'11" guy.
Yeah. My thoughts on Connor. I'm really disappointed in what I'm seeing out of him. I just wish that we were so excited about his production last year and what he did, and coming into this year, adding to the already deeper team we had. He's not taking his chances when he's out there. He's not taking the open looks. He's taking them, but he's not making them. And it's just, it's not. He took 1 3-pointer and he bricked it. And I'm just thinking, if those don't start to fall, he's going to get less and less minutes. And I mean, the comment earlier was right. He is a defensive liability, and there's no doubt about that. So I'm beginning to think that he's not going to be right this year. We're not going to see him play a significant role in this team. And unless you see guys get in foul trouble and he's forced to be in there, maybe that's what we need so he can get some confidence back. But obviously, he's still being defended really well. Like teams understand that when he comes in off the bench and you can't let the guy be open, because if he's just standing there taking practice threes, he's gonna score. So, but also he did more things last year. He wasn't afraid to drive, and now I feel like everything he's doing, he's tense because he's afraid that he's going to get pulled the second he does anything wrong, which is true. As far as Gilmore goes, my thoughts are I want to see Ilver more, because I'd rather see Ilver there than Gilmore playing in the backup 4. But Gilmore is a guy that works really hard. We've said this before. He's earned the playing time, at least some of it, because of the effort that he gives. That being said, this is Division I college basketball. This is the Big Ten. You have to be productive if you're going to be out there. Now he scored 7 points, and that's fine. He made a 3, which is rare, but that's also fine. And he plays hard defensively. But the bottom line is, the more he plays, the less great we play. Right? It's just that simple. And so there's that piece of it that I just can't seem to reconcile. But look, at the end of the day, I like his effort, and I'm okay with that. I agree with you on Winter. He needs to play more, and he needs to continue to develop, because he's the guy that I really like the most out of anyone in this class. Now, clearly, Blackwell is the darling of this class so far. There's no doubt about that. I still think Winter becomes really good, and he's there. Let's move into the Big Ten a little bit overall. You made some comments that the Big Ten is down. I agree with you. I think the Big Ten is down this year. And I'm interested, all those of you listening, put in the comments, answer this question. Now that you've seen that non-conference season is basically over at this point, especially for us. There's still other teams still have big games. But so now where do we finish in the Big Ten? What is our Big Ten record? Okay, so looking at everything before, right? I don't remember where we were at the beginning, but I remember my overall record was like 21-12 or something like that. Where do you think we finish, and what kind of Big Ten record do you see us having now after seeing an entire non-conference season?
The only teams that I'm truly afraid of are, Purdue is going to win the league. I think we know that. I think Illinois is pretty good. I think they're similar to us in terms of what they are. Which is a very good but flawed team. Like they're probably not going to be. They're not going to be in the Final Four unless the matchups just set up just right for them. And I think that's with Wisconsin too. Like Wisconsin have to get really hot, and they'd have to have the perfect matchups in order to make a run like that. So everyone else that I've seen, Iowa's down this year. Michigan State is an abomination right now. Maryland is nothing special. I kind of look at it and it's like, if we finish outside of the top 4, it would kind of be depressing with how bad this is. It's a lot like the football team where you look at it and you're like, man, if we're not good, like this is just a sad state of things. I think we are good enough. That's the difference between this and football. I think that they've proven it enough with some of these wins. I think they have more players to lean on in the games that we struggled with last year, which will help us going forward. So I think ultimately we're going to finish second or third. And I think a lot of it will come down to which one of the two teams can be more efficient in the game that we play against Illinois. But I'm not really impressed with any of their teams. Of course, we'll probably lose a few games here and there, but there's not a lot of teams that I see the consistency out of that I look at. Like Iowa and Michigan played each other the other day. They both stink. Like they're 5-5 teams. Like that's a rough year. And then MSU just lost to Nebraska. So that tells you all you kind of need to know about the state of the league.
There are some teams that are having some surprising starts overall. Northwestern's looking like
they're probably a top 4 team. I would say that Northwestern's got a chance to be top 4 or 5.
Indiana's got great athletes. We don't know how really good they are. Illinois is okay. Ohio State's had a decent start. Nebraska's had a decent start. So I agree. I think Dark Ray said earlier, I think it's hard to say where they finish in the Big Ten. I'm still saying top 4 to top 5. I'm not ready to say 2 or 3 yet because some of these teams that we really haven't watched, we haven't really seen, could really come out of the woodwork. And
they could, and everybody could grow. Yeah,
and we're going to know 5 or 6 games into the Big Ten season, kind of where things shake out. It's good that we're 1-0, and it's good that we've got a nice start. But early on in January, we play Iowa, we play Nebraska, so we'll know very quickly. Our first few games are we play Iowa at home, Nebraska at home, then we go at Ohio State, and then home to Northwestern. So that's an interesting 2-game stretch there with teams that are overperforming so far this season. Then we go at Penn State and host Indiana. So there's an opportunity for us to start really well and really strong. And if we can win that stretch and maybe potentially go undefeated through that stretch, then you're really going to see us finish high and top. But I'm going to say 12-8 in conference play, which is going to end up finishing probably 4th, I think. Again, it's hard to say, but that's kind of where I expect to finish. Now, it's a little higher than I thought earlier because the bottom line is we've been playing better than we expected to play. And who knows? I mean, I understand people are saying the Big Ten's down, and I think it is. And I think when you see a team like Michigan and Michigan State, especially, anytime Michigan State isn't playing great, you think the Big Ten's down because they've been such a huge sort of anchor point for the Big Ten for so many years. But I think the Big Ten still has good teams, and I think we'll do okay. But I'm excited to see where this team takes us. At the end of the day, wrapping up a little bit on basketball, we're in a really good spot. We're playing well. We're doing the right things. We've given young guys confidence, guys like Blackwell, new guys like Storr, guys like Winter. They're getting playing time. They're doing what they need to do. If Connor Segian can figure it out and get it back and get more minutes, we're that much deeper and that much more dangerous from a shooting perspective, but we're not quite there with him yet. I'm very happy with this team. I think coming into the Big Ten season, last year, I was disappointed in a little bit. Half the time, I wasn't really sure what we had because we played too many close games early. We have really taken it to teams a lot so far this year. So there is a lot of potential overall. Very happy with what I'm seeing. Any other last thoughts on the basketball team before we move on, Justin?
I mean, they've got a few get-right games coming up here that I feel like give them an opportunity to rebuild their confidence now. I mean, I'm sure it's going to take a little bit. I think they play Jackson State next this week. And I think that's a good opportunity for them to kind of get their legs back under them and get a strong victory in that. I think they're projected to win, but it was something like 22 points or something like that was the spread.
Jacksonville State Thursday at 7 p.m. Central.
And I think that will be a game that they come out. Hopefully they come out like locked in and just blow them off the floor. And it's one of those things where it's like they show some of that metal a little bit where you can see them come back out and prove that it didn't phase them having that bad game. So hopefully they see that. I will say this, you're very right with the early record. They have a chance to reel off like 5 or 6 straight wins here if they play well. And I think that there's a really good chance that they actually do that, which puts them in a really good spot. They're going to end up moving up in the rankings. They're going to get an opportunity to build more confidence in that regard and hopefully get some of these young guys, like with some of the easier schedule letting up now, you can play some of those young guys a little bit more, like Winter, like hopefully extend Blackwell a little bit, get Connor in the rotation a little bit more now that you don't have to worry about him defensively necessarily in a tight game. The biggest takeaway from last year and this year, as I said last year, they can't separate. They really struggle to build a lead on anybody. And what that does is that forces you to play your starters longer than you want to, because they have to keep you in the game or win games that you don't want them to. This year, I feel like they are capable of separating a little bit and actually, getting up 10, 15 points on certain teams and just kind of holding out with the backups. The backups, the second group comes in and we just don't seem to give up lead as much as we used to, which is a big deal. It buys minutes for everybody. We've seen some games where our starters end up playing like 25 minutes and it's against quality opponents. And that's a big deal for this team to not get worn down heading into March, like last year where they just wilted at the end of the season because they were so worn out from every game being a grind. So there's a lot to like about this team. They've got a long ways to go yet, but I think the pieces are there for them to be really good. I actually think they have a chance to be as high as like 14-6 in the league this year, because I think the middle of the Big Ten kind of stinks. I think it's going to be a really bipolar year. You're going to see 4 or 5 teams that are pretty good, and then you're going to see a bunch of teams that are like, wow. There's, Iowa, Michigan State, and that might be down. And that could really kind of make the league look more middling than what it's been in the past. Probably like 5, 6
six losses is not that many, given you're playing Purdue twice, and who knows. But great comment from Bo Dragon here. Totally agree. They should let Connor shoot about 30 shots against these next two bad teams. Yeah. Listen, Bo, you're 100% right. The Connor needs to play a ton. Let him shoot his way out of this funk. Justin, you just said it. You don't need to worry about the defensive because we're playing Jacksonville State and Chicago State or something like that. I can't even is that what it is? Yeah, Chicago State. Goodness. We absolutely, it's a get right game for Connor. You saw in one of the other games earlier, I think it was the Western Illinois game, maybe, that he took 7 shots. That's great. Like, do that. Have him shoot the ball more, which is what needs to happen. So let's moving on to football a little bit. We're going to talk transfer portal. First of all, congratulations to Jane Daniels for winning the Heisman Trophy from LSU.
How do you feel about that?
Game. Oh, I feel very strongly about it.
You felt that he should have had it?
No, I think Marvin Harrison should have won the Heisman.
That's right. That's right. I was a Penix guy, so
to me, we'll just spend a little bit of time on this. I hate the fact that this has just become a quarterback award because it is not.
I won't argue that
it's
not meant to be
player in college football. And so every now and again, you get a guy like, look, Melvin Gordon should have won the Heisman. Come on, we're still mad about that, and we should be. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is an incredible wide receiver. He is absolutely game-changing in anything that he does. In my opinion, he was the best player in all of the country. He deserved the Heisman Trophy. You can't just keep giving it to quarterbacks because you got to give it to quarterbacks. I think that's complete crap. And I absolutely expected Marvin Harrison to win it. I wanted him to win it. I shouldn't say I expected because I know that the voters and whoever decides this award always seems to go quarterback, and I absolutely hate it. And listen, if you guys disagree with me, put it in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, he absolutely should have won it. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in the country, and it drives me crazy that year in and year out, it's just, pick the best quarterback. That's crap. It's not. If it's a quarterback award, then call it a quarterback award. But it's not a quarterback award, so stop giving it to quarterbacks every single year. That doesn't mean they're the best players.
I'm going to one-up you on this, and I'm going to actually say it's effectively a Southern reward, because unless you have a completely transcendent year for one of the Northern teams like Ohio State or Michigan or Oregon when it was what's his name out there, they don't vote for anybody that's not in the SEC or ACC to win the award. Like we just don't get players from the North anymore that are ever even in the discussion. I mean, you talked about it with Gordon having 2,500 plus rushing yards, and I think he had a couple hundred yards receiving that season too, didn't he? I think Ryan said it was something like 2,700 total yards of offense. When you think about that in terms of a all-purpose yards season, that is insane for a running back. And I don't think he was close. He was like tied with somebody for third place or something like that. Wasn't he in the voting almost his season? And Mariota was a good quarterback that year. Don't get me wrong, but like, come on, like, what are we doing here? Like there has nobody has been within 500 yards, I don't think, of Gordon in the last how many years. And that tells you how astounding of a season that was.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it annoys me. It's going to continue to annoy me. I feel like every year I'm going to have this debate and I'm going to have this discussion with people because I just don't get it. But it is what it is. Congratulations. Listen, it's fine. Yeah. Like, he's a great quarterback. I mean, Bo Nix was great. Like, all of them are great. The quarterbacks are excellent, and I'm not saying they're not excellent. A Dark Ray said that he thought that that Bo Nix deserved it, and Daniels played great. LSU had a great season. It's all fine, but seriously, I will argue until I'm blue in the face that Marvin Harrison was the best player this season. Speaking about the future now, transfer portal, Justin, let's talk a little bit about some players that that had some visits that we talked about. Specifically, I want to talk about the quarterback position. So Tyler Van Dyke is looking like has he made his visit yet, or he's scheduled a visit? I think he
made his visit. He was there this week. He's there this weekend.
And Daquan Finn from Toledo is another guy that's been talked about. So let's look at those two guys. Their games are a little different. Who do you like out of those two? Would you like to see one of them take over as Wisconsin quarterback? What are your thoughts on the quarterback position for Wisconsin?
I'm going to tell you right now, I would say Van Dyke is the guy they want because you always bring in the guy you're most sold on first and give them first right of refusal, so to speak. He's an interesting guy. Ryan, I was talking to him and he said he thought he was Stave plus. And I don't see that. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that I would compare him to. He's got a big arm. He's pretty mobile in the pocket, but he's not a guy who's going to take off running. So he moves pretty well. If you look at his stats, like from a yards per attempt standpoint, he's got really good numbers historically for a guy who's played in a decent league. I think he was as high as 9.3 or something like that was his best year.
9.0. He was 9 1 year. Then now he's 8.1. Yeah.
7 was his lowest, which would have
7.3. Yeah.
Which would have been significantly higher than anything we've had recently. And he wasn't terrible this year, but he just wasn't great too. Like he had a few games in there in the middle where it's like, what the heck's going on here? But Miami, I mean, I don't know what to make of that team. Cristobal is still trying to kind of get things, set the way he wants them there. I like him. Do I think he's an upgrade of what we have on the roster right now? Yes, I definitely do. I think that you have opportunities here between him and Finn. It depends on what you want to do. I think that you're going to get more passing out of Van Dyke, and I think you're going to get more all around out of Finn in terms of him just being more dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, so Tyler Van Dyke, he's 6'4", 230. Like you said, the yards per attempt have been good. I like Van Dyke. I spent a few hours actually today watching some of his highlights, and I watched a little bit of Miami last year. A couple things. First of all, when you couple it with Longo's offense, the biggest knock that we had on Mordecai this year, you and I both said it, was that his decision making was a little bit slow, and he didn't pull the trigger when he needed to. Mm-hmm. I don't see that with Van Dyke. I see a guy who is quickly surveying the field and taking a shot. Now, and in a Longo offense, you need to make that quick read and you need to let go of the ball. There were many times this year, especially in the game that I went to, the two that we went to. I went to 2 games. I think you went to 1. The guys were open, but Mordecai wasn't releasing the ball, and I saw that in the Purdue game. This has to change, and I think that's the one thing that Van Dyke does well. I like how he reads the field and how he quickly makes that decision. Secondly, another thing we complained about with Mordecai, his inaccuracy on deep balls. Van Dyke does not seem to have that problem. Now, again, I haven't watched every game he's played. I'm watching mainly highlights. I watched a couple Miami games this year, but he can throw a good deep ball and he's accurate. And that was my biggest knock on Mordecai. He wasn't accurate throwing the deep ball. So I like that. Pocket presence is another thing that I like in Van Dyke. He seems to read the pocket well. Is he going to be mobile, like you said? Not necessarily. Can he be a little mobile? Sure. Throwing on the run, I haven't seen enough sample size to see how he does. Saw a couple highlights, but does nothing that really jumped off the page. But in the end, upgrade, yes. As far as Daquan Finn from Toledo, very athletic. Certainly will provide that running quarterback feel. I don't really know how well he can throw the ball, especially when you play against MAC competition. What is he going to be like when he comes to the Big Ten and he's getting Ohio State's pass rush, USC's pass rush? What's going to happen?
He's faced Ohio State's pass rush. Toledo.
Okay. True, but I think that, what were his numbers that game? I'd have to look and see how he
had
did.
A touchdown pass and a touchdown run. I know, at least in that game. I think he had 2 touchdown passes and a run. So he actually played pretty well against them.
That's good.
So the issue with him, you're not wrong. Like he's a guy that's gonna be far more balanced. Like if you're gonna see him, you're probably looking at a quarterback that's gonna be like a 200 to 225 passing yard kind of guy who's gonna probably give you 60 to 75 yards rushing, and that's a good game from him. Van Dyke, you look at some of his stats, you're looking at a guy who can tear it up through the air when he gets hot. Like he had games where he threw for 350 plus. Now, some of that's going to be dependent upon wide receiver talent because there were some dudes on Miami that the young guy that just entered the portal, and he maybe gives you an opportunity at a guy like that to bring in. That guy can really play, and that guy would probably be our best wide receiver the second he steps foot on field. I think he had like 900 yards receiving this year. So, depending on all that plays out, it really depends on what you think you need in the offense and what you feel is most like what's going to be the easiest transition. So I think I will Van Dyke is most likely to actually be able to continue to do what he's been doing because obviously he's been playing similar level talent.
Mm-hmm.
We have not seen Finn play against a full Power 5 schedule. And that kind of scares you because he could have a really good game one game, and who knows what he would have done the next game.
Now, that being said, the ACC is not really known for their defense.
No.
And people in Florida State can argue whether they're even a Power 5 conference anymore after what the committee did, but whatever. Zach Bart says Van Dyke feels like a system guy. He flourished with Rhett Lashley, who has a similar system as Longo. When Lashley went to SMU and Cristobal brought in Josh Gaddis, his numbers were halved. Like Van Dyke, like you said, his yards per attempt number were pretty good, 9. Then it went down to 7.3. This year was 8.1. I feel like he's not elite. He is a guy that can do the job. He's a system guy. I think Zach's right. He's a system guy. But Longo can flourish with a system guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're accurate and you make quick decisions, you can be successful in the Longo offense. And if you can use your feet a little bit and get out there and score and get some first downs with your feet. I don't know if he can do that, but I'm okay with his passing. What I want to see is someone who can throw the ball accurately, especially deep, and he has that. When you look at him versus Locke, I think that's why I'm okay with a guy like Van Dyke, because we talked about bringing in a veteran this year that can compete with Locke, not necessarily be the starter, and I'm fine with that competition. Let's see what Locke can do. I'm not writing Locke off as a starter next year. I think he showed some great things this year. So let's bring a quarterback in to add some veteran sort of, person into that group, and then let the guys compete and see what happens. But I'm fine with that, and I think that's the guy that I would pick. But I'm okay if Finn comes to, I'm not going to complain because he brings a whole different skill set. Mm-hmm. Justin, so Leon Lowry was our actual commitment from the transfer portal. There's all kinds of back and forth about that. Chris Walsh, whatever his name is, the lovely NIL agent guy who got fired. The Wisconsin fan base got this guy fired. It was great. But
he actually got fired?
Not fired, but he got fired from Lowry. Let's talk about Lowry a little bit. Talk about athleticism, outside linebacker, a guy that a position of need for us. What do you like about him, Justin? What do you think he's going to bring to this team?
I think he's 6'4", roughly 240. Yeah. Guy has good speed. I wouldn't say, listen, he doesn't have the burst of somebody like Herbig, but he's got good twitch, and he's got a guy who can really get around the edge. I wouldn't be surprised if his numbers take a jump. Now he's kind of hitting that time when an outside linebacker type guy starts to kind of make the leap. I think athletically, he's an upgrade over anything we had this last year.
Yes.
I'll say that right now. And I think that will give them opportunity to be a guy that can definitely get around, cause some problems for tackles in the Big Ten. If I had to take a guess this next year, if he starts, which I think he will, I'd say 5-6 sacks. Like I'm not going to say that he's going to be like crazy off the charts high, but I think that he's going to take a step forward compared to what he's done the first couple of years. He tackles well. He's a guy athletically who could chase down plays, and he plays aggressive, and he's a hitter. So he adds a lot of something that we've missed this last year. And I think that makes a big difference for us. And I think that's why they targeted him and were so high on him, and why they actually took a chance on getting rid of Wash and getting him back in the fold, because I think they realized, listen, we really need somebody like this in that defensive room to be able to provide an athleticism boost to a group that we really are struggling with right now.
Yeah, agreed completely. You guys have heard me say multiple times that I've been clamoring for the defensive front seven to be the focus of our transfer portal. We got shredded this year way too many times in rush defense, and I feel like, you watch like Ohio State just consistently go to the outside and run around the edge, and you got guys like Peterson and Getz out there, and they played hard, but they didn't really play that well. And our linebackers really just did not stand up to typical Wisconsin linebacking cores of the past. We saw time and time again the lack of athleticism, especially on the outside, do us in because people were going around the outside. And then when we did get some kind of penetration, they couldn't make the tackle in the backfield. They would miss the quarterback. They would miss the running back. But what you're getting with Lowry is cleaning up one of those key positions. You still need more, especially in the middle. I think you need more in the middle linebacking crew as well. But yeah, this is a step in the right direction. I'm happy with this guy. We clearly need linebackers. And now let's get a little defensive lineman action too, because the defensive front seven has got to be, in my opinion, where this team focuses in this offseason.
Yeah. Tyler Strieber, if Lowry is dumb enough to get duped by an NIL agent, should we even want him? Massive red flag for me. He's a 21-year-old kid. And I look back on it, like if you have somebody that's coming and telling you that you need them to be able to work the deal for you, I can understand how you get looped in on this. I'm not going to say that makes him a bad kid based off of that. Now, he was definitely got his head right and adjusted and got out of it. But I can understand how this is happening. I think this is something that needs to really be targeted by the NCAA in setting up some type of, whether it's by the leagues or whatever, to get these kids so that they feel like they can trust the teams to handle this stuff for them. Part of the issue is everything's the wild, wild west right now. You need to take some of that out of it so that these kids can feel like this is the infrastructure that's in place for NIL, so that you don't have people like this getting involved in the whole thing, and that people can be like, who are you affiliated with? And if it's not there, and there's some type of certification or something like that. So if somebody doesn't have it, you can just be like, no, you're not affiliated with this. You have no real power. Why would I want to get associated with you?
Right.
Defensive line, Slackman, Joe Slackman, just went to Florida. They don't feel very confident that they got him. The other schools that potentially he is being involved with are Michigan, Virginia, and North Carolina. I look at that group, and if Florida's not the team, I have a hard time believing he's going to walk into Michigan and be like, they're going to sell him on you're going to be a starter when they have 65 guys that are on the defensive line room right now.
Yeah, that room is stacked.
I would have very legitimate concerns if I am a guy being brought in from the portal with that group and saying, you have 20 plus guys in your defensive line room. You're going to tell me that I'm going to start for sure? Like, I have a hard time believing if somebody explodes in the spring, like it would suck if you're him to sit there through the spring and then be told, well, so-and-so took a jump. We're going to go with him on the first team, but you're in the 2 deep. Like that would, with your last season, that would be really tough to swallow.
Yeah. Justin, finishing up on football, any other players you want to talk about in the portal? Anyone else you're interested in getting into or you're liking so far that you're seeing?
Jackson McGowan, he was there this weekend. LSU tight end that was actually committed to Fickell at Cincinnati and went down there after Fickell left. That guy's got some skill, serious pass catching ability, big, athletic. He's more of a split out tight end, which I think is exactly what we're really looking for right now, is a guy who really fits that bill. I really like Booker and Steck, and I think Booker's a guy who we may end up getting back in the fold. I would take McGowan over either one of them. I think that he's that type of athletic potential difference maker as a receiver, that he's a guy you got to take a risk on. Here, I'm going to bring this up here. Tyler, Xavier Lucas going to Miami for a visit makes me nervous. It makes all of us nervous. There's some hints that he may jump there. I don't know if that's happening for sure until we hear something on that. Who knows? I know FSU was his dream offer. It didn't happen. So I feel like this is an opportunity where potentially Wisconsin may be able to get this done. If we haven't heard him flip his commitment out of this weekend, I got to believe the staff is headed down there like tomorrow to try and lock him back in. And if we haven't heard about him flipping by the end of the week, I would say we probably have him still.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. Bo Dragon says the bowl game against LSU is invaluable to be able to see what weaknesses you have against elite teams. This game with LSU will show you exactly.
Do you agree with that? I don't know if we're not going to see the team that LSU has been putting on the field this year. Like,
well, look,
Daniels isn't going to be playing.
The players that LSU have are athletic. I don't care even if some of those starters aren't playing. We're still going to see what we need, and there's still going to be holes in this team. So we're still going to get a good effort from LSU. I always favor us in bowl games because I think we get up for bowl games a lot more than other teams do, and I've always been very proud of that in Wisconsin, and our bowl record has been strong. If Daniels plays, I want to see him play because I want to see how we do against them. It's probably not going to be good, but I'm okay with that. And I do think you're still going to get a vision of how this team plays against good opponents like that, because they're still an SEC team with SEC talent and SEC athleticism. So I'm fine with that. I mean, I look, the more the merrier. I want all those guys to play. I love bowl games because I love that competition, that last sort of taste in your mouth before the offseason. I hope we do well. But the more players, the more starters of LSU play, I'm good with. Totally.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, we're seeing, where is it? Here. So our defense won't be able to keep up with LSU. I won't say anything regarding that because if Daniels isn't the quarterback, I have no idea if the guy's even competent that's backing him up. And that could be the difference. Like if you have a quarterback that just gets rattled, he could stink and he could make it so that they rarely score. That might not be an indictment of the rest of the players on the field for LSU. That could be just simply quarterback's not very good. And that can be the difference in a game like that. Now, I really have no feel for that game because I don't know who's going to be playing, and I don't know whether the guys that they have that are going to be backing up the guys that sit out for LSU are going to be any good. But like you said, they're still going to have athletes. Mm-hmm. Whether it will be nice to see us out there again against a team to see some athleticism and see how some of these guys maybe stepped up. It'll be nice to see some of the young guys get out there and potentially play and show us some things. We've got wide receivers that are gone. We're not going to have Skylar Bell. We're not going to have Chimray in this game. So there's going to be some change up in the starting lineup for us from the wide receiver room. And we'll get to see some of these guys maybe flash a little bit in this game. It will be interesting outside of that, honestly, to see young guys like Bo Dragon mentioning Jamel Howard. He might get out there for a little bit. He'll be interesting. I could see on the defensive side of the ball, I think Allegro has a chance to really flash in a game like this where they may get him out there with a couple of weeks to really prep him and get him more involved in the defense to get him out there, maybe feel a little better about him overall. I think we have a chance to have a good showing in this game. That doesn't necessarily mean a win, but it could be the team just shows some continued growth that we saw in the last 2 games this season.
Yeah. Dark Ray says, can Nick Evers just get one drive just so we can see what he's made of? Yeah, we sure would like to see Nick Evers out there.
How about maybe a goal line like him? Just something. I don't know if I want a full drive on him because God knows what we're going to see. Yeah.
Come on. Totally. Zach Bart says, Tretch sighting at wide receiver. Yes, that would be amazing as well.
I'd love to see it. I don't know if we will.
Year. All right, Justin, we have a team at Wisconsin that is pulling better than anyone else at Wisconsin. That's the women's volleyball team into the Final Four of the women's volleyball tournament. They will face Texas in the regional. They beat Penn State 3-1. They beat Oregon 3-1, and now they're playing Texas, who's a number 2 seed, who upset Stanford. And then the other side of the bracket, of course, is sitting Nebraska, who is more than likely it's going to be a Nebraska-Wisconsin rematch yet again. 2 best teams in America, hands down. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement on that. Look, the team has been playing really well. I watched the entire Penn State match. I thought that was super exciting. I think, when you got girls like Smrek and Franklin and Booth, I mean, Booth's getting these huge hits from quick sets, which I think is so exciting. Mm-hmm. Look, the strategies together, their blocking has been amazing. They're playing as a team. They're playing as a unit. And honestly, people need to pay more attention to this. We need to pay more attention to this. This team is crushing it, and they deserve all of the focus and all of the attention of all Wisconsin fans around the world because they are one of the best teams in America, and they are 2 games away, Justin, from winning the national championship.
I will say this. If you're somebody who's a huge football and basketball fan for Wisconsin and you have not watched a women's volleyball match, you need to watch them play once. The game is super fast-paced, so it moves through the match really quickly, and it's fun. Like the athleticism that you see from these girls is really impressive. I will say this, I will be shocked if I've watched a lot of them this year. And I will say this, Wisconsin is the most dominant team in the field. Mm-hmm. Their ceiling is higher than any other team in this field. The question is can they play to that ceiling the rest of the way? Like we saw it when they abused Nebraska, when Nebraska came to Madison, they played them. They're very capable of taking an elite team and just dismantling them. So if they continue to play good, I would say their biggest kryptonite for them is a team that can really serve. And Oregon was a pretty good serving team. And Oregon could not handle their block. And the size that they have, the ability to attack with that much size from Wisconsin, there's just nobody else in the field that has their kind of size.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, there's really only one team that I think can really beat this team, and that's Nebraska. And even then, we took them to 5 sets at their place, and we just beat them.
And that was without Smrek.
Right, and then we just beat them down in Madison. So, listen, it's going to be fantastic. Thursday, the semifinal game. So it's Nebraska against Pittsburgh on one side of the bracket, and then Wisconsin and Texas on the other side of the bracket. And then the championship is on the 17th. at 2 p.m. Central Time. So definitely something to watch. Again, these girls have been playing incredible, and it's so fun to watch. They are. I mean, you don't see a lot of sports where we are the most dominant team in the country. Women's hockey is certainly one of them. Men's hockey used to be that team, and we'll hopefully get that way again. But it's great to see one of our teams out there and performing so well. So definitely check it out. Justin, final thoughts for this week. Anything else on your mind?
Yeah, let's see the women's volleyball team get a massive win against Texas and move on, and let's see the basketball team get right. Show a dominant performance. 30. Yeah, show a dominant performance against Jackson State, and continue to move forward with them. They have a lot to build on. They're a team that's learning to win again to an extent. Like, they have some really impressive victories early, but with the way last season went, they need to learn that it's okay to lose a game, but you got to start fighting forward and not let that build. Because if you lose a game and you let it beat you the next game, that's when you fall into problems. They can't afford to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you all for listening again this week. We'll be back on Wednesday for our regular midweek show, and then back again next weekend to talk about all things that are coming up, and probably more on the transfer portal, and hopefully there's a little more activity there to get into. But as always, listen, Justin and I continue to be really humbled about everything that we've been seeing from you all. So thanks to every one of you for listening, giving us your time. There's a lot of podcasts out there. We appreciate you guys focusing so much on us and listening to us every single week. Thank you so much. Justin, you put up a comment here. Did you want to talk about this? Yeah,
Zach Bart's let's see a commitment from elite 4-star defensive lineman Ernest Willer Jr. There's some good smoke in Wisconsin's favor on that one, and that would be a huge get for us. That is the type that turns the defensive line room, which I would say is probably a B- right now in recruiting this cycle, to like a B+ A-. Like, we're talking a top 150 guy that you're getting that has real true flexibility to play either as a 3-4 and a 5 tech, or a guy that can slide into the nose guard in the pass rush.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, listen, and we need guys like that. We need guys like that. This year showed us why we need more and more guys like that. Thank you all for listening. We will be back again midweek, and then again next weekend. And as always, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.